Back in 2007, when I was just 4 years old, I got a game cartridge to use on my DS that was a little bit different. It wasn't the typical DS card, but instead it was a GBA game pack. I didn't know it at the time, but I was about to experience my first Mario RPG in the form of Mario Luigi Superstar Saga. Over the years, I've played every single Mario RPG and loved some of them and, did not love some of the other ones. Without further ado, let's get into my ranking. Number 16, Puzzles & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition. This game seems to be really forgotten as I almost never hear anyone talk about it even in other Mario RPG rankings. It is technically an RPG though, which is why it is on the list. Personally, this just isn't my type of game. I had fun with it for a bit and think it's a well-made game, but I just couldn't get into it. It clearly takes a lot of inspiration from New Super Mario Bros. There aren't rich story elements or unique locations and characters. It's just Puzzles and Dragons with Mario elements, so if you are into that genre, I think you will have a really good time with it. You could find this game for about $15, and it's worth a shot for that price if you're even just curious. Number 15, Paper Mario Sticker Star. I do not like this game, and I've been consistent on that since I first played it. There were just so many objectively bad design choices, and it still baffles me how Nintendo made a very similar sequel to this game and then a sequel of that game with a similar style. It looks great for a 3DS game and has a nice soundtrack, but that's about it. There's absolutely no story for a series that was known for having some plot to keep the player engaged and following along. And this was the successor to Super Paper Mario, which was widely regarded as the best story in any Mario game. You could find a story in New Super Mario Bros. That is on par with this. Besides the story, there just are no unique characters or environments. Remember how everyone loved the brand new characters in the first 3 games, and the really strange and unfamiliar environments in those games? Well, Sticker Star has Goombas, Koopa Troopas, Shy Guys, generic Toads, and Bowser is the main villain. And you have unique environments like the grasslands, deserts, jungles, and a frozen tundra, things we've never seen before. Yeah, there's just nothing unique about any of these environments. Battle system is completely pointless and there's just no XP. You are better off avoiding enemies and using your stickers for mandatory boss fights. Now let's talk about the backtracking. Now backtracking is not uncommon in RPGs, especially Mario RPGs, and it works to various degrees, but Sticker Stars is just so horrible and stupid. It seems like no thought was put into it. It seems like they spun a wheel and said, you're gonna go back to this level to find this sticker for this level in a completely different world. There really aren't any hints or anything, which might be fine if you were somewhere around them when you need them, but as I said, they could be in completely different worlds. One of the few semi-redeeming qualities in this game is that the soundtrack is alright, nowhere near the level of other games, but it certainly does its job. I really can only remember a few songs from the game though. Overall, I really just don't like Sticker Star, and it was not difficult at all to put it as the second worst on this list. Number 14, Mario & Luigi Paper Jam. This now 9-year-old game was the latest entry to the Mario & Luigi series before Brothership very recently. We thought Paper Jam may have been the last Mario & Luigi game with Alpha Dream shutting down, but fortunately it wasn't, and we got Brothership, which I'll get to a little later. This game just is not very good. It's basically the Sticker Star of the Mario & Luigi series, except it still plays like a Mario & Luigi game when Sticker Star just doesn't play like a Paper Mario game. It just has bland locations, same old characters, minimal story elements, and is just repetitive. You would think when they're bringing characters from the Paper Mario universe, which has so many to choose from, so many unique characters, and so many good story elements, that they would include some of that in Mario and Luigi, but they didn't. They literally just took characters from the Paper Mario world that were Toads, Goombas, Koopa Troopas. At least with Paper Jam, there is at least XP so you have a reason to battle. I actually like the idea of having paper characters in this universe, which is why the game is so disappointing to me. You had a chance to bring back so many beloved characters from the first 3 Paper Mario games, but instead just the typical Koopa Troopas, Goombas, Toads, and Bowser as the main villain. Imagine Dementio, Lord Grotus, any of those characters just coming back, even if it's just a cameo, and they didn't do that. Paper Jam at its core is a stripped-down Mario & Luigi experience with some flat-out boring elements like the Toad hide-and-go-seek games and the Papercraft battles. The Papercraft battles are just not fun, and it's something I was really hyped for when this game was about to come out. It had so much potential to be great, but just feels clunky to say the least. The soundtrack is alright, but it's definitely the weakest of the series. It's really sad how such a legendary series went dormant for nearly 9 years following this game. Number 13, Paper Mario Color Splash. Color Splash is better than its 3DS predecessor, but it's just still not a great game. I'll start off with the positives. The soundtrack has such a unique theme, as many of the songs have a pseudo-jazz kind of ragtime feel to them. You could really hear the orchestral sounds in many pieces as well. This game also looks fantastic, even being now a nearly 9-year-old game. I'm not a fan of the whole obsession with making everything paper. I prefer the first 3 games simply using it as an art style and not having the entire game be about paper, but it still looks great nonetheless. The humor is also pretty enjoyable, but after that there's just not many positives I can think of. The story still feels like an afterthought, and once again the environments and characters just feel uninspired yet again. Albeit there are a few bright spots. Bowser's the main villain again. Well, he kind of is. He's possessed by the black paint. The battle system is also once again pretty pointless. The only thing that you could get from battling is extra paint, but you already get a lot and don't really need it. So once again, you don't really need to fight that much. It's also extremely tedious as it takes forever to use a card. You have to select it on the gamepad, fill it with paint, swipe up, rinse, and repeat. And Color Splash just really feels like an improved version of Sticker Star, but that really isn't saying much. It took a bad game and kind of made it mediocre instead of flat out terrible. Get it? Flat out because paper is flat. Maybe that joke fell flat. Anyway, moving on. Number 12, Paper Mario Origami King. I know a lot of people, especially younger fans who weren't around yet for the first 3 games, love Origami King. And while it was significantly better than Color Splash and took more steps forward from where Color Splash was, it still feels more like modern Paper Mario. I just don't like the style nearly as much as I do the other games, so there's really only so much I can really enjoy this. Unlike the previous games on this list, I did get enjoyment out of Origami King. I thought it was a well-made game for what it was. I think Origami King is a solid game on its own. The soundtrack is absolutely amazing and gets better the more I listen to it. The world is a lot more open this time, and you don't have to use a world map going level to level. The main villain throughout the game is King Ollie, so for the first time since Dream Team, there's a truly unique final boss in a Mario RPG, unless you want to count the black paint. Partners are kind of back, you don't control them at all, but it's still something. And like Color Splash, the game looks fantastic, however the story, while better than the recent 2 games, still just doesn't hold up to the original trilogy. Everything is still paper, except some bosses, which I'll get to momentarily. As I've said before, it was called Paper Mario as the design was just supposed to take inspiration from a storybook and not have the entire world actually made out of paper. This is the 3rd game in a row where they're doing this, and I'm just not a fan of this gimmick, especially after 3 games. The gimmick has gotten stale, and while there are definitely some more unique environments than the past 2 games, it just pales in comparison to the original trilogy. The combat system is better now, kind of. It doesn't have stickers or cards, but there are no expertise points, which puts little incentive into battling. Even Color Splash had more incentive to battle than this. The board you move enemies around on is interesting, but I just don't think it plays out that great. It just gets too tedious like the battles in Color Splash. I still very much prefer the original style, and even Super Paper Mario is just regular combat. It's still more fun than this. I mentioned how I would talk about some bosses that were not paper, and if you played Origami King, you already know what I'm getting at. There's a Legion of Stationery, which is office supplies that you fight. I thought it was a neat little concept, but I still would prefer to have more fleshed out villains like in Super Paper Mario. It still seems like Nintendo was hell-bent on just improving the Sticker Star formula instead of either completely changing it or making a sequel to TDYD or Super. And yes, I know Origami King is different from Sticker Star, but it still shares a ton of the same aspects and problems. At least we got the TDYD remake last year, so that shows the original games aren't completely forgotten, and it gives me some hope that with the Switch 2 coming out soon, we can get a return to form Paper Mario game. Number 11, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. This crossover has absolutely no business working as well as it does. It combines the Mario series, the Rabbids series, and has them fight in XCOM style battles. It was received so well that it got a sequel, which I never saw coming. I never even saw the original game coming. I'm usually not a big fan of tactical RPGs, but I had a fun time with this. I'm not very experienced in this genre, but it still felt fair. A knock on the game is that there just isn't much of a story and that it kind of feels like a gauntlet of battles compared to this grand adventure. But the combat is so well designed that I couldn't put it any lower on the list, even though it's not my favorite genre. Number 10, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. The sequel falls right ahead of its predecessor, and while the games are fairly similar, Sparks of Hope does make plenty of improvements to transform what was already a very solid experience into being that much better. The world is so much more expansive with so much more to do compared to its linear predecessor. The story is better and even introduces some Rabbids lore, and of course the combat has been upgraded, which gives you a lot more customization and possibilities. If you didn't like Kingdom Battle, you probably won't like Sparks of Hope, but if you did, there's a good chance you'll like this even better. The reason it's ranked at number 10 is just because, as I said, I'm not the biggest fan of the XCOM style of combat, but for what it was, I really did enjoy it. Number 9, Mario & Luigi Brothership. The newest entry on this list and the long-awaited return to a beloved series. Brothership is the first game in the series to be released on a quote-unquote home console. It looks good, but I'm still unsure about the art style. I definitely do prefer the older style, but there's no question Nintendo took advantage of the massive technological leap from the 3DS to the Switch. The game itself is fun and feels like a Mario & Luigi game, but the tutorials and difficulty just kind of make it feel like it's a game for little kids at points. Dream Team had the same issue where the tutorials held your hand a little too much, and while I don't think Brothership is as bad, I definitely think it is an issue. My biggest complaint though is how Luigi just feels disconnected from Mario and the player. Remember how fun it was to control the Mario brothers by pressing A for Mario and B for Luigi and using their different powers? Luigi is now controlled by AI, which just takes a lot of the charm out of the game. I remember the charm of Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, where it felt like you were controlling both characters individually. The NPCs just don't have as much charm as the first 3 games either in the series and overall. This is just a decent game that makes a few massive mistakes that bring it down severely. Still did enjoy it, but my opinion can change as time goes on. Maybe in 5 years when I think about it more, I'll think this game was a disaster. Maybe I'll think it's a masterpiece. Number 8, Mario and Luigi Dream Team. Dream Team was the last solid game in the series we got for a while, and it takes the Mario and Luigi series to a new perspective, which I do give it credit for. The Dream Worlds were a breath of fresh air for the franchise. The Dream Battles just give so much more creativity. The Dream abilities are really fun to use, especially in combat. It is different from real-world attacks because you have a huge group of Luigis to use in attacks, and this is just fun to use. Part of being in a dream means that the final fight may just be a fight where Luigi becomes a giant and you fight a giant enemy. Sounds familiar? Yeah, that's something else that was in Bowser's Inside Story. You even turn your 3DS to the side like in the game. That was one of my favorite parts of Inside Story, so I'm glad Pillow Island, where you do have some of your basic Mario locations, mixed in some of these new terrains. Luigi goes to a castle and ends up falling asleep on a pillow that gives him the ability to have the previously mentioned dreams. The main villains are Bowser and Phantasma. Phantasma wants to cause destruction to the Pillow civilization and wants power. Phantasma is no Fawful, but is definitely an interesting villain. Some flaws with Dream Team are the tutorials at the beginning just go on way too long, just like with Brothership. Why they did this again 11 years later in Brothership is beyond me. I think the game overstays its welcome just a little bit, as it kind of becomes a slog towards the end. Overall, still a great experience, but every game that follows this I think are all masterpieces. Number 7, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. This was before my time, as I really got into gaming in the mid to late 2000s, and I didn't finish it until I played it on the Switch with a remake. Had I played it when it was new, there's a good chance it would be higher, as playing it close to 3 decades after its release, I still thought it was a fantastic game worthy of all the praise it's been given. It's a little dated if you play the original, but the remake fixes most of those issues. It's the first Mario RPG, so there's a lot of ideas that would become staples in Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi. The timed hit system is one, but it's not nearly as polished as other games in the Paper Mario series. The writing isn't the greatest, which is to be expected from the first time there was an actual attempt to make the story more than just an afterthought for a Mario game. The movement in the overworld is a bit clunky even in the remake. However, what this game does well, it does really well. The soundtrack has so many memorable tracks whether you're playing the remake or the original, and has a great cast of characters, better than a lot of modern Mario RPGs. One of the most notable characters is Geno, who is still a fan favorite today. This is the first time you team up with Bowser, and this journey just really feels like a classic RPG adventure. Like I said, I'm not talking about remakes in this video, but the remake is the best way to play this game, and how I fully played it. And in my opinion, I think this is one of the games Nintendo's made that needed a remake the most. Nintendo bringing back 2 of their classic RPGs within a year puts a smile on my face, and I hope this shows Nintendo that we want real Mario RPGs, not the more watered down style of today's Mario RPGs. Number 6, Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. I know this might be controversial to have this at number 6 compared to most people having it 1, 2, or 3, but as you can tell, it is my 3rd favorite game in the series. Before I get to my full explanation of why, I just want to talk about the carrot minigame. I got Bowser's Inside Story when it came out back in 2009 as a present, and it was one of the first games I got at release, and having played both Superstar Saga and Partners in Time, I was really looking forward to playing Inside Story. Every day after school I would continue to progress the game until I got to the carrot minigame, which I was stuck on for like a month. And I know this is a shared experience, I've seen so many people hate the carrot minigame as well. But anyway, for the rest of the game, I really like the concept of having both these worlds to explore, but I do think it could have been executed a little bit better, as I thought the Mario and Luigi sections were a lot weaker than the Bowser sections. It being in 2D does limit it, and I know obviously there's only so much variety that can be put in when they're stuck inside Bowser, but the overworld in Bowser's sections is just so fun to explore, and I did enjoy the puzzles there better as well. It was a nice change of pace to have these Bowser battles added in to add some variety. The writing in Inside Story is some of my favorite in the series, as Alpha Dream also got to bring back some classic characters like Fawful and Popple, while adding in a lot more new faces. The completion time of Inside Story also feels perfect. It doesn't drag on unless you're on the carrot minigame for a month, and it doesn't feel like it ends too soon. Like with every game on this ranking, the soundtrack once again is amazing, and the final boss theme is just a masterpiece. I actually like this version better than the 3DS version, but that's just because I like the DS sounds for the music compared to the remake, and that's all personal preference. Either way you play this game, you're gonna have a good time. Number 5, Mario and Luigi Partners in Time. This is really controversial to have this higher than Bowser's Inside Story, and clearly Nintendo feels the same way since they just skipped over it with the remakes. Like with Inside Story, I have a story with Partners in Time as well. I just finished Superstar Saga and found out it had a sequel that came out a couple years ago, so I wanted to pick it up, but since this was a time before online shopping was really mainstream, I kept trying to find it in stores, but no one had it in stock until I went to a GameStop and they had one copy left. I love the time travel aspects of Partners in Time, and I thought the troops made for really interesting villains. The map was disconnected as each area was traveled to via portal, and instead of the more open exploration seen in other games in the series, but it makes up for with how greatly designed these places are. There's Yube's Belly, which is the first time the Mario brothers got trapped inside a big reptile dinosaur before Bowser's Inside Story happened. Thwomp Volcano, Holly Jolly Village, Vim Factory, and just so many more locations in this game are brilliantly designed and feel really fresh to the series. The game is not perfect though. Instead of bro points for special attacks, there are items that you find or buy. I think the system is a lot weaker than just having bros points. The pacing is off in terms of how strong you're going to be in relation to where you are in the game. You most likely are going to have to grind out some XP instead of just naturally progressing. As for why Partners in Time is ranked higher than Bowser's Inside Story, even though that's a pretty unpopular opinion, it's as simple as this is just a completely subjective list based on my enjoyment of each game, and I just happen to enjoy Partners in Time more. Maybe it's a little more nostalgia, maybe it's certain levels that I like better in it, but I do want to hear in the comments what game you prefer. Number 4, Paper Mario. This game gets a lot of credit for starting off the series on a great note and laying the groundwork for the games to follow. The story isn't the best, but there's at least an attempt with it. The Peach interludes are a great way to get you more engaged in the story, and it does get a pass for having Bowser as the main villain since this was the first Mario RPG to do so. But there are just so many brand new unique characters, from the partners, the toads that actually have distinct personalities, new bosses and NPCs. There's also new locations like Shy Guy's Toy Box and Flower Fields, and there's a lot more going on in the typical environments like the grasslands and desert compared to the regular Mario adventures. Paper Mario also has a brand new battle system where every bit of damage counts. You won't be doing 20 points of damage with an attack, so you need to think about what you're going to do. The customization with badges adds more strategy in as well, with all the different options at your disposal. This is something different than Super Mario RPG where you could upgrade your gear. Paper Mario is just an amazing game that started this great series, and I hope we get a remake of this like TTYD someday. Number 3, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. My favorite Mario and Luigi game, my third favorite Mario RPG, and the first Mario RPG I ever played. With Paper Mario, Superstar Saga started off the series with a bang. Every single successor has followed the same basic formula of Mario and Luigi traversing through an overworld, using and getting new abilities like hammers, a higher jump, and a spin move to go across gaps. The Beam Beam Kingdom is a ton of fun to explore as it introduces so many new and quirky characters as well as new locations to explore. One of my personal favorites is Woohoo University, where the main baddies are the viruses from Dr. Mario. Spoilers for an over 20-year-old game. This is where you fight Cackletta for the first time, which was a huge surprise. I was expecting to fight her at the very end, but not halfway through, and you still do fight Cackletta at the end, but through Bowletta, and it's actually Cackletta's soul, which is a really hard boss fight, made even more difficult since the pros start with 1 HP each. The rest of the game is fairly easy, but the fights just feel so smooth, which is even more impressive considering this is the first game in the series, and on the Game Boy Advance. Like with Inside Story, I prefer the original version of this just because the GBA sounds just hit different. Number 2, Paper Mario The Thousand-Year Door. This game pretty much improved on the original Paper Mario in every aspect: story, gameplay, combat, characters, environments, soundtrack. The Thousand-Year Door just took what made the original great and just made it better. Partners have more personality as they really didn't have much in the original, and there are some really amazing and unexpected chapters such as joining a league where you keep battling in hopes to finally beat the legendary Rockhawk to win it all. There was a mystery on a train that had a private investigator penguin attempting to solve it. You even go to the moon at the end, a whole 13 years before Odyssey did it. The battle system is also greatly improved over the original and even puts you on a stage with an audience that can both assist you or try to hurt you. TTYD also has a more interesting story, with the new villains being the X-Nauts, or Cross-Nauts if you want to call them that, but I've always said X-Nauts, led by Sir Grodus instead of Bowser. Then there's also the Shadow Queen, which makes this game a whole lot darker. There's just so much to say about this game that makes it so amazing. You have the Pianta Mafia and Rogueport, which by itself is something you could talk about for a while just because of how ridiculous it is to have in a Paper Mario game. It's just not a typical Mario location. You have the amazing soundtrack, which I believe to be the second best in the series, all the hidden secrets, the humor, the new gameplay mechanics that come from the curses. Thousand-Year Door is a masterpiece and one of my favorite games of all time, and I've probably mentioned it 5 times in this video, but we finally got a remaster after 20 years, so go play that. I do think there is one Mario RPG that, in my personal opinion, I enjoyed more. Number 1, Super Paper Mario. Now, I've done other rankings on other channels, if you've seen those, but every ranking I've done has had Super Paper Mario at number 1. But beyond it being my favorite Mario RPG, it's arguably my favorite game of all time. Not because of objective reasons, a lot of it is nostalgia, but all this list is my personal enjoyment of each game. It's not supposed to be an objective list. It's a controversial opinion, but it's just that, an opinion. If you don't like Super Paper Mario, I won't change your mind on it, and you won't change my mind on it, because we can't just control if we enjoy a video game. Different people just enjoy different things. The story is absolutely amazing, and something that really hasn't, and likely won't be seen in a Paper Mario or any Mario game again. There are brand new villains like Count Blick and Ventio, which makes this game a whole lot darker, like with the Shadow Queen and TTYD. Count Blick wants to destroy all the worlds due to a tragic event in his life, and there's a few very good twists surrounding this later in the game. The soundtrack also, in my opinion, is the best of any Mario RPG. There's just so many countless amazing songs, like The Ultimate Show, Gloom Valley, Merly's Mansion, Samus Kingdom, and just so many more. While the game's pretty easy, it is also fun to explore all the environments in 2 different perspectives. As for the environments themselves, let's just take a look at a few. There's a sweatshop located in a giant mansion, a world completely made of bits, a Japanese-inspired kingdom that pits you against samurai-inspired characters, the underwear, which I believe represents between heaven and hell, and the over there, which is meant to represent heaven. The gameplay, while being very easy, is still very enjoyable, as it plays more like a traditional Mario platformer with RPG elements, and that's okay. I know a lot of people say that this isn't an RPG, but it's definitely more of an RPG than Sticker Star and Color Splash, and really Origami King too. There actually is an incentive to battle, as you do get stronger and more health. There actually is one turn-based battle later in the game, which is a nice homage to the previous games in the series. Super Paper Mario is also a masterpiece like the ThousandYear Door, but I personally just like it better. You may not, but like I said, all this is my personal subjective ranking. And that's the list. Let me know your ranking in the comments, as well as rankings you would like to see me make in the future. And like I have said probably 5 times, don't take this list too seriously. This is just based off my personal enjoyment of each game. If I was trying to make an objective list, this would be a lot different. All I ask is that you try to respect each other's opinions in the comments, since this is all for fun and it doesn't matter what other people think. All this is people's opinions on video games. That being said, if you did enjoy the video, please subscribe and turn on notifications, as it really helps out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.